you want to save money on your trading card purchases, we have a promo link over at 50cards.shop. Enter the promo code ATNIGHT to get 5% off your order. Hello, everyone. Welcome to stuff. I just wanted to see if that would throw him off.
It worked. It got me thrown off.
Welcome to V to Premium Transitions. It's the series where we take a clan, show you how to turn it from a V deck into a premium deck, and show that it's maybe not too hard. I'm here with Ty Smith.
Hey, how are you, Atlas?
AKA the guy who just got top in Rosemont.
Yeah. Second place is feeling pretty good right now. Yeah, but we're not here to talk about Narukami. We're here to talk about Bad Clan instead.
I know. We already had a Narukami episode, and Root Beer was there for that, but you hadn't topped at that point, so.
Yeah, I'll take the second best one.
Yeah, there will be a link to that deck list just in the description if you want to see that for real. Today we're talking about Link Joker, specifically how to turn Messiah Deleter, I guess, into premium.
Yeah, so Messiah as a deck is probably the one that if we're going from V to premium is probably the easiest, given that in V, Chaos is kind of but also you need a lot of pieces from the premium card pool in order to make Chaos work. The easiest deck to transfer from V to Premium is Messiah, mainly because the boss monsters stay the same, with the exception of, albeit, 3 pretty inexpensive cards from the same set Messiah came out in. So if you bought a split from that set, you probably have a lot of the cards that I'm going to explain here.
So why don't we get into it, starting with the V version of the list. What do we got going on here?
This is my V Messiah list. It's not perfect. I'm still very new to V. But basically all the pieces here are the cards you want to be seeing. You got your 4 Volcos, obviously. You got your 4 Messiahs, obviously. If you own this deck, this will be the easiest thing to have in order to convert it over to Premium. The game plan for Premium is still the same as it is in V, just with a little extra steps. You're still want to go resolve your Volcos. You're still going to want to swing with big number. You're still going to be doing some unlock shenanigans in order to form multi-attacks. But otherwise, if you have a list very similar to this one, if the 4 ofs are at 4, then you should be able to convert it to premium rather easily.
Yeah, and as always, I'll have the link to these lists in the description if you want to go look at them, because I know this is tiny on your computer screen and or phone. So, yeah.
Cool.
Was there anything about this that, you wanted to mention before we move over to the premium?
It's a cookie cutter Messiah list. There's not really anything special here. There is the Chaos Messiah build, and I will say if you own that deck, you still have most of the pieces for the Messiah conversion. Chaos Messiah is basically like you take out the Lady Fencers and you put in Zirconiums, you take out the Grade 3 Searchers and you put in Craving Claws, and then you throw a few copies of Chaos in there. That's basically the deck.
No Zinc, though, right?
No Zinc. Oh, God, why you gotta do this to me, man? Bring her back, Bushy. She's fine. Bring her back.
Because it's fun to make me torture.
She didn't need to go, bro. She didn't need to go, man. But there's nothing really too unique about this list. I'm playing 2 of the funny restand guy because sometimes he goes off. He also just says Counterblast 1 draw a card, which your deck doesn't use Counterblast anyway, so, I mean...
Which one's the funny restand guy?
The 2 of Grade 2 you see there. He says when he unlocks, you look at the top card of your deck and add it to your hand. If it's a Grade 3, restand your Vanguard.
Okay, so it's second from the right? Like, click on the...
Yeah, second from the right. It is this guy, Remarkable Burst Monk.
Okay, alright.
You have to discard a card in order to restand the Vanguard, but when it goes off, it's really funny. But it does just read Counterblast 1, draw a card, which is, not bad for V, especially in a deck that A is already drawing a pretty good amount of cards, and B doesn't really use its Counterblast all that much. But if you're talking about a version of the deck that does use Counterblast, that's where Premium comes in, because we've got a lot of really cool toys we can look at.
All right, let's hop over there. So
This is Heart Alley's Deleter Messiah list from BCS Duluth, I think it was. This is not my list. This is Heart Alley's, so shout-outs to him for letting me use this list. But we can see here that a lot of the cards that you saw in the previous build are still here. You still got your Messiahs, you still got your Volcos, you still got your Lady Fencers, you still got that Grade 2 that locks from hand to draw a card, you still got the Grade 1 that locks from hand to draw a card, you still got the Booster, you got the Grade 3 Searcher, you got the trigger lineup, and everything else is new, but very easy to get your hands on. First of all, the leader card here. Idoga, if you don't know, because if you played B Messiah, you've probably never seen this card before. On place, he says you can counterblast 1 to delete your opponent's Vanguard. In Premium, that's pretty big because you have a new stride from the new Premium collection that lets you restand your Vanguard with Given and then go plus to field off of the stride skill. Doing that kind of multi-attack while your opponent is at 0 and their Vanguard's effect is turned off is very terrifying and very menacing. What it means is that they need to check 2 defensives at least to make it so that they're not 5k pokes anymore. What it means is that they can't use any Vanguard skill like maybe a Gurgit effect to get a PG from the top of deck on board. I believe they lose their name as well, so anything that says if you have a blank Vanguard doesn't work anymore. I don't remember how delete works, but if it's...
I think they lose their text, but I think they keep the name.
If they keep the name, then that's also fine. Like, there's not a lot of cards that really care about that too much.
Yeah.
But that can matter for some PGs. Maybe some PGs say like, this can only PG units with the ritual ability, for example. Suddenly that doesn't work anymore.
That's true. Yeah, if it's tied to ability and not name, then you can shut them down pretty hard. Yeah,
so delete's a very powerful mechanic, and it's the centerpiece of this deck. You're basically doing your Volco loops and you're doing your attack combos you would in V with a few extra steps, as well as the delete thrown on top. You can also see that we're playing lie down, delete, or given. This card says that if your opponent has a deleted Vanguard, after this unit attacks, you send 6 cards from your hand or field to the drop zone, restand your Vanguard, and it gets -1 drive. This is not once per turn. This is not hard once per turn. In other words, it's really strong. The last piece of this combo is a stride. We're skipping ahead a little bit here, but Nebula Dragon, Cosmic Dawn Dragon. Whenever it attacks, you counterblast 1. Look at 7 cards from your deck. You can put 2 of them down as locked cards, then bounce any number of your locked cards to hand or unlock them. For each card bounced to hand, lock an opponent's rear guard. For each unlocked, it's another multi-attack, because that's how lock rulings work.
Right.
This is not much turn either.
What?
So, if you restand this with Given, you can use this effect again, adding either more cards to hand or more cards to field. And if you hit a Given off the skill, you can then resolve the Given again. Basically, it's pretty high roll to get 3 Vanguard restands, but it has happened before. I've witnessed it with my own eyes. And my opponent in round 7 of Swiss was playing this deck. He did resolve the restand, and if I wasn't holding a correct combination of Guardians, I was basically dead on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
So, these 3 cards are basically we're going to call it your winning image. You're going to delete, you're going to call Given, you're going to use Cosmic Dawn to do some lock things, and you're going to beat them with Volco really hard. Other than that, the G Zone is a pretty new thing. Other cards from G to look at. Dynamis. This card is insane with Volco. It's absolutely bananas. It says that at the end of the battle, it boosted, you can Soul Blast 1 and lock it to unlock one of your rear guards, and then give it plus 4,000 power. So let's say you have a Volco column and this is behind it. You swing with Volco boosted by this. Volco locks, then you activate this skill to lock this, unlock the Volco, swing the Volco. That's 2 attacks in a column for a Soul Blast, and those are both Volco swings, which are massive. That's also 2 procs of Volco's effect to give a unit 10k 2 times.
That's pretty nuts.
Yeah, it's a very... Dynamis is the reason why Messiah functions in Premium, I would argue. It turns 1 Volco column into 2 Volco columns, and then you have a Volco in your other column, that's 3 Volco attacks, which you're then resetting when you either use a Messiah Stride or when you use an unlock ability like Cosmic Dawn. It resets everything. It's also worth noting that Dynamis is not Messiah restricted, meaning if you're on the Deleter or Cosmic Dawn, you can still use this skill.
Right. A lot of Messiah cards are usually themselves Messiahs and not really tied to Messiah. You know what I mean?
Right. This card, for example, can be used under anything. You'll see things like Sacrifice Messiah, which need to have a Messiah Vanguard. So you
stand corrected.
You can't use this with Cosmic Dawn, but you can if you ride the Deleter and then stride a Messiah. You're now on a Messiah Vanguard, so this can use its effects. Basically, if you don't have a Vanguard with Messiah and its name in your heart, then you need to have one on your Vanguard circle that's a G unit if you want to use Sacrifice.
Yeah, we'll get into the G zone in a little bit here,
Right.
but Sacrifice Messiah's main thing is that like he locks himself for a countercharge, which means you can turn one counterblast into two.
Yep. This means that, for example, if you're sitting on Alter Ego and then you stride Cosmic Dawn, you can countercharge in order to use Cosmic Dawn multiple times. In order to use other effects with your Cosmic Dawn, if you're like on 1 damage, for example.
Right.
It also means that it's at 2 copies this time instead of 4 like previous Messiah lists, because you don't really counterblast as much with this deck. And when you are counterblasting, you're on a deleter on top of Cosmic Dawn, and so you won't really get to resolve Cosmic Dawn's effect that many times. If you're on a Messiah G unit, which we'll explain later, like you said, and you ride the deleter, stride a Messiah, call Sacrifice, call Given, you can refund the counterblast from your Messiah G unit's effect, and then flip it back face down when you do another attack with Given, and then reset your Volco columns, for example. The ideal high roll, you can do this with 1 damage, by the way. You need Sacrifice, Dunamis, Volco, and a Given. Those 4 cards can make a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 attack combo with big freaking numbers for 1 counterblast.
Okay, so you have what's the big guy's name? The 30k guy?
The Volco.
Volco. So you have Volco and Dunamis as one column.
Yep.
And then you have Given and Sacrifice in the other one?
Yeah, that alone, Sacrifice could also be behind the Vanguard. Doesn't matter where the Sacrifice is. That alone is 7 attacks for 1 counterblast. And so you would go Volco, Dunamis, restand Volco, swing Vanguard, activate skill. You need to have another locked card, but you can do that with any one of your other grade 1s. Do your triple drive. And Given, blah, reset the board, etc., etc. That's a basic Messiah combo and doesn't take into account any board state, any hand size, any extra things. It's a very, very, very basic combo, and even then, it's possible to misplay and still get something good out of that.
Yeah, it seems like your main play that you're going for is Volco plus Given, and then just however you facilitate that.
However, whatever extenders you have can facilitate either going into Cosmic Dawn or a Messiah Stride or anything else.
Right.
If you have 3 Counterblast, for example, you don't need Sacrifice. This deck barely uses Counterblast as is. Sacrifice is really only here if our opponent, for some reason, is damage denying us, I believe.
Which is a legitimate strategy in Premium and things.
Oh, absolutely.
People will do it. Although, historically, Link Joker's main weakness is being rushed.
Yeah. This deck has an early game, but it requires you to ride this grade 1 and call a Voco, just like V. So I don't think I need to explain how that rush necessarily works, because if you know how to play V Messiahs, you know how to do this.
You're right. And then another thing to note here is the OT, which, as always, waiting for Bushi to kill the OT.
Kill the OT! Ban it! I would be in first if not for OT!
You have a video going over every specific thing about why the OT is terrible, and I find it hilarious.
I want to do a sequel because people don't get the big picture yet. People still don't understand how bad these things are for the game.
Do it.
I might do a sequel, actually. But this card, I don't think I need to explain why it's good. It doubles crit and power, and if you have this on a Cosmic Dawn turn... By the way, something worth mentioning. It says until end of turn. So if you do this on a Cosmic Dawn turn with a deleter and a Given, your Cosmic Dawn is restanding with all that power and all that critical.
That's pretty fun.
It's insane. So this does actually have some interactions outside of just making your dudes huge. Because you have a restanding Vanguard, it does actually matter how big your thing gets.
There's a reason we rank this one the best OT.
This is absolutely the best OT, hands down. There's no questions about it. The strides... Sorry, not the strides. The critical triggers. Because these crits are different from what you saw on the B list. These have effects. In Premium, we have triggers with effects. In this case, we have a trigger here that counts as a grade 3 when you're discarding it for stride. In other words, you don't need to discard an alter ego. You could ride your alter ego or your deleter in order to get extra force markers, and then use this for your stride fodder instead of needing to discard a grade 3. and we have the soul crits. Your soul can be a bit of an issue in this deck, so having these is really nice because they go into soul and draw a card and then give your Vanguard 10k. By the way, that 10k is until end of battle, so even if you restand your Vanguard, it doesn't keep the 10k. Keep that in mind. That is relevant.
Yes.
Now, moving on to G units. This one I'm going to go a little more in-depth with because the Messiah G zone is a little more complicated than just taking the best strides from the premium collections and slapping them together. Your G era strides actually do matter in this, as opposed to a deck like Luard where the game plan is basically more Festa Turbo.
Right.
You're looking at, first of all, Cosmic Dawn. Like I said, I explained how this card works. On a deleter turn, if you're restanding your Vanguard with Given, this is either this or one other stride I'll explain later are the targets for going into. This card's absolutely insane. Even if you brick, this card can be used to unbrick your hand. It lets you look at the top 7 cards of your deck and call 2 of them as lock. If they're PGs or heal triggers, for example, you can then add them to hand to lock opponents' rear guards.
That's pretty cool.
It basically looks at top 7. At the very absolute worst, this card is look at 7, add 2, lock 2 rear guards. That's crazy good by itself.
Especially going first, and Link Joker tends to be something that can last if it has to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think this is actually pretty good in Chaos as well. It's just like a good unbricking tool. Mm-hmm. But in Messiah, it's not only an unbricking tool, but also it can be a finisher under the right circumstances. Remember, this effect is not once per turn, so if you restand your Vanguard with Given, you then get to use the effect again. 1 counterblast, look at 7, call 2, or add 2 to hand, and use that effect once again to continue going plus. The lack of drive checks in this instance doesn't matter. So what if your Vanguard gets -1 drive? You're going +2 every time your Vanguard swings.
Right.
The next card of the G zone is Barrio End. This is mainly here for marker spam. Let's say, for example, you're playing against Ripple, which is a deck currently. Hopefully that we'll get the English ban list soon, and they'll take that out. But fighting against Ripple, if you resolve Barrio Ends, you take out all their excels, and for each one you take out, it gets 10k and a crit. This resets up Ripple players' entire board. All those excels they worked hard going for, gone. All those force markers, say the random Astropoet player has, gone. All those protects that Hanzo was farming, gone. Any markers farming, this guy gets rid of those. You can even use this against a deck like Thavas that generates 2 excels on its first turn and just take out the excels.
Yeah, Nightmare Dolls.
Oh yeah, Nightmare Doll. This takes out their their excels or Nightmare Doll.
Ears, which is also a thing at the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Any deck that farms forces or excels or any kind of markers, this card can take out those markers for you. Mm-hmm. Very, very powerful card.
It's like a silver bullet, is that why it's just at the 1?
It's a one of being a silver bullet, yeah. What I like to think of is like a card like Evenly Matched. Where what it doesn't do is it doesn't win you the game. What it does is it equalizes the board state. Against Ripple or any other Excel farming deck, what this does is it equalizes the number of circles that you and the opponent have. Against Hanzo, it equalizes the number of attacks that they're going to be able to guard. And in some cases, it puts you in a more advantageous position. And in the mirror match, this is used to delete any force markers that they might have on their Vanguard to force them to reride in the worst of worst situations. Against Eradicator, it's used to deal with any excels that they might have farmed off of Sweep Command. There's a lot of applications that this card has. It's only in the worst case scenarios 90% of the time, though, so for that reason, we're only running 1 copy.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Glue Ball Avalanche is another card that you basically use this to stall for time. You use this card to farm for pieces and wait to see what happens. You Soul Blast 1, flip any G unit, doesn't matter what G unit you flip, to lock 2 opposing rear guards. Against a Force deck or any deck like Luard, for example, this allows you to take out their front row and make them a Vanguard-only deck. Against a Protect deck, the same idea. What this does is it makes it so that all they're doing is Vanguard swing passing on their next turn. That way you can stall for time, get to a later win con. And the reason why this flipping any G unit is important is because our next try that we're going to look at needs to have 3 face-up Messiah in order to be a win con. So you can do this twice after maybe doing an Amnesty turn, for example. And that, in the worst case scenario, that alone is all you really need. This is to buy another turn, It also says that if there's two of them face up in the G zone, whenever a unit would be unlocked on your opponent's side of the board, it gets bound face down instead. This auto wins the mirror match, hands down.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, if you're sitting in a mirror match and your opponent doesn't have this, you're suddenly so ahead of them that it's not even funny. You stride this, flip the other one, put it back in G zone, and watch as they try to unlock their board and suddenly realize that their board is now gone. This is also used to play against a deck, say, I don't know, let's say they have a unit that you actually just want to get rid of. Like maybe they're playing Aqua Force and they have Galphelia access. Then if they activate Galphelia's effect, they're binding their unit instead of unlocking it. So that's how you can very easily get rid of a Pursuit Assault.
That's true. And then pretty much. Yeah.
Any deck that has an unlocker, you want to use this because it turns all their unlocking into where did my board go?
I think like the one exception is like Pale Moon, because there are things like pulls the locks into Soul and then calls them back up.
They actually can't do that anymore if you're fighting Nightmare Doll. They actually can't do that anymore because remember, Hari and Alice are choice restricted. If Nightmare Doll wants to play the game, they can no longer use Hari, so they no longer have an out to lock.
That's true.
As a result, this card actually, thank you for reminding me of that, I completely forgot about that matchup. This card can win the Nightmare Doll matchup sometimes. You take out their 2 front row, maybe they're not able to perform another Excel, and you've severely reduced the amount of attacks they can do.
It shuts off their Leslie by doing that.
It does shut off their Leslie as well.
Yeah. So.
It does shut off their Leslie as well. So the only deck that really doesn't care about this is like Highlander because they have Ange, and that's it. And even then, you're probably actually faster than Highlander if I'm being real. You can go off a lot. You can go off sooner than they can, assuming that you went second. If you have your grade 2 game is automatically better, given that you have a Vulko access. So against Highlander, it's a bit harder, and this doesn't work against that matchup. But there are other things that you can do. It's just a matter of testing, though. Like,
what else you got?
The next card on the list is Integral Messiah. This G unit is the other win con of the deck. When you stride it, the instant you stride it, if you have 3 or more face-up Messiah in your G zone, which remember, you can flip Messiahs for blue ball, both players put their entire hand back in the deck and draw 5 cards. All those cards you just spent that time farming, you get a brand new 5-card hand. Look at that nice fat hand size that Ripple has. I don't know if I can break it. Yeah, you can. You made him make it a new hand at 5 cards. This also does put all of their normal units that they're probably holding on to back at their deck. So now they're probably going to check more normal units when they do their damage checks. So it mathematically sets them up for less defensive triggers, as well as resets their hand so that you can do the deleter combo and basically kill them on the spot. But its effect that we're mainly using, though, is when it attacks, you counterblast 1, and you flip a G unit face up. It can be any G unit you want. This, again, since it counterblast, this is why Sacrifice Messiah is here in order to equalize. In order to mitigate the counterblast cost, sorry. You unlock all of your locked cards. Is it your locked cards or locked cards in general? All of your unlocked cards. All of your locked cards. And then if you unlock 3 or more, you soul charge 1, draw a card, and this unit gets 10k. Now, that's already pretty good resource generation. You get a soul, you get a draw. What else is there to like? You unlocked your rear guards. So what this does is it resets your Vulko column. It resets maybe your Lady Fencer column. It resets the columns you had locked units on. Against Chaos, this resets your board. They might not have enough soul to get rid of everything in that case. This card is basically Alter Ego, but instead of just giving them 10k, for a counterblast, you could draw a card and give itself 10k. This card, because it also has the 5 or more attachment to it, this is one of the other strongest cards in our deck. The other one is Assaultus Messiah. What this does is, if you're late enough in the game, this can lock an opponent's entire board. When it attacks, counterblast 1, choose a face-down G unit and flip it face up. If your heart card's a Messiah, the Integral doesn't care if you have a Messiah heart card or not, but this does. You choose a locked card and a rear guard on either player's field for each face-up card in your G zone, and locked or unlocked it. If you unlocked 1 or more cards, you draw a card. Now, In the late game, you'll have plenty of face-up units in your G zone. Because remember, after you use a G unit, it goes into your G zone, face-up. So if you have 4 at the start of your turn, or maybe 3 even, and you flip another one, that's 4 locks on your opponent's field, and you're unlocking your entire board. This can be not only good aggro for you, but also good stall on the opponent. It's blue ball plus Messiah's effect. It locks their board as well as giving you a new one. And it's for that reason we play 2 of Basaltus. It's a bit pricey, but I do think that the advantage it farms for you and the stalling that it has is very powerful and worth the money.
Right.
You also have this guy. He's not as good in my opinion. He's mainly flip fodder for your other cards. But when it's placed on Vanguard Circle, if you have a heart card with Messiah, this one also cares about your heart card. You lock all fighters' rear guards, and you unlock all other fighters' rear guards.
Yeah, so you switch them. Right.
Yeah, anything that's locked is now unlocked. Anything that's unlocked is now locked. So Transels is basically against, I don't know, maybe you G-guarded previously against a Ripple board or any other ginormous board, and you used Locus Carina to lock your own board. Now you can unlock your board with Locus that you locked with Locus, and lock your opponent's entire field. This is another stall card, essentially. If you have no board and you stride into this can just lock your opponent's entire board, and then you're free to slap your hand out and do whatever.
It just kind of seems like a panic button.
It is a panic button. It is a panic button, and it's actually a really good way to describe it. If you go into this, more than I want to say once every 5 games, there's probably something wrong going on. But otherwise, it's pretty powerful. And the last Messiah card is Amnesty Messiah. By the way, it's worth mentioning that all of these Messiah effects are not left for turn. So if you're able to resolve Given, which only matters for Integral and Amnesty because they don't require Messiah heart cards, if you're able to resolve Given and you have the Counterblast, you can use the effects again. Amnesty, in this case, when it attacks a Vanguard, you pay the cost. If you do, you choose any number of locked cards and unlock them. It gets 3k for each unit unlocked, and if the number of locks is 3 or more, it gets critical +1. That critical is until end of battle, remember. So if you want to get that critical again, you gotta resolve the effect again. If you restand it with Given. This does not flip, and so you mainly are only using this on a given turn. It's a one-up for that reason. You don't want to be going into this multiple times. You're mainly resolving this off of a given turn, perhaps. It does have a critical, though, so that's pretty good pressure. And it also gets pretty big depending on how many units you unlock. But those are all the G units. It's a toolbox of stalling, a toolbox of combo, and basically just analyze the board state and see what is right at the moment and stride into it. This is one of the more flexible G zones rather than just, hee Stunverse over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. You have like a different answer as opposed to just Stunverse.
Yeah, or Exterminate this time around. Thunverse is bad currently. Exterminate's the good boy.
Yeah.
Next is the G-Guards.
You can just skip them. G-Guards are G-Guards. There's not really much of a, like...
There is one interaction I want to talk about, however.
Alright.
So, this card doesn't matter. Locks card in the back row, it gets 5k shield. Doesn't matter. Locus and Destiny Guardian are the 2 G-Guardians I want to talk about. Locus and Destiny Guardian have a cool little thing they can do together if you don't want to Locus and then Transels. Locus says that you can choose, you flip a G-Guard, so you need to be a GB1, and you can lock any number of your own rear guards, and then lock an opponent's rear guard in the back row for each card that was locked. That is a setup for Destiny Guardian, who says that when it's placed on Guardian Circle, you can choose up to 2 unlocked cards and unlock them. If you unlock 2 cards, it gets plus 10k shield. So Locus plus this is 40k shield and a locked opponent's back row. You can also, if you use Locus's effect and you're on a Messiah, you can activate Sacrifice's effect to give your Vanguard a defensive 3k. So if they're doing 11k pokes, 13k pokes, for example, now they have to call boosters in order to do any kind of damage. This can work with magic numbers. If you have 2 sacrifices, this also works to give your Vanguard plus 6k, and that's a lot more significant. That's a lot more significant defensively. But those are the only things that matter with the G-Guards. The G-Guards and Link Joker are kind of garbage. You can run the new one if you want to. I really don't recommend it, if only because you need to have a locked board in order to do so, and that requires a Locus in order to work. And at that point, you're better off just using Destiny Guardian, just because it's more flexible in the matchups that it has.
Right. So, yeah, that's pretty much a build you can do.
Yeah. You can build pure Messiah if you really wanted to. You could build this build. You could build a lot of things. If you have your hands on the Deleter promo, for example, for maybe we're in a utopian future where the Deleter promo is now accessible to everybody. If you have that card, for example, there are a lot of cool things you can do because it counts as 3 discards or 3 retires for a Givens effect. So Given goes from needing to discard 6 cards to needing to discard 4 cards. And that actually does make a significant difference when you're going +2 every time your Vanguard swings. So there are variations you can do with this build. It's a very flexible deck. I think this build from Heart is very powerful. It's got really good ratios. This is a nice skeleton you want to start off with. So once again, credits to Heart Alley for giving me this deck.
And
also good job on your top, by the way, buddy. Good job on your top, by the way, Heart.
And good job on your top. And thank you.
Yay! I did a thing.
I'll leave your channel and like all the stuff in the description if you want to go check Ty out. As always, like leave a like, leave a comment, tell a friend, got Patreon, all that shit's in the description. Thanks everybody for watching.
Check out Atlas. He does good work. The man does good work. The man does good content. Give him some love. I am calling to you as your Facebook overlord. Give this man some love.
Thanks.
See y'all around, kiddos.